This is Abba and Preach, two guys with a channel that I frequent on occasion, particularly when they're going after Amanda Seales, because I find it rather hilarious. I generally enjoy their content, think that they're, good guys with a pretty good head on their shoulders, with an S. But there was an incident that took place in Canada where a coach or a commentator by the name of Don Cherry went on a bit of a rant, and they did a reply to it, which I'm going to be doing reply to. So without further ado, let's get into it, because they explain the entire situation pretty well themselves. So let's go.
Today's topic, Don Cherry. So if you don't know where, Don Cherry is a sports anchor here in Canada, one of the most famous, iconic TV personalities. And he recently got fired from Sportsnet for comments he made on the air. So let's take a look.
Downtown Toronto, nobody wears a poppy. You people love you. They come here, whatever it is. You love our way of life. You love our milk and honey. At least you could pay a couple of bucks for poppies or something like that. These guys pay for your way of life that you enjoy in Canada.
Basically, people are mad because...
Hold on. Now, when he starts going off like that, you can see this is a gentleman of age. He's definitely on the older side of things. And he is clearly Canadian and has been Canadian his entire life. And there's a connection that I think he's speaking to when he says things like, these guys have paid. It's really like, when it comes to migration and immigration, as someone who's from a town with a huge immigrant community, I can say that the level of assimilation isn't always where it needs to be, and for the older classes, it can be rather frustrating.
To use the term "you people," which is pejorative in a lot of senses to a lot of folks, and so they got mad. He was essentially trying to defend the poppy, which, if you aren't aware, the poppy is a symbol that we wear on Remembrance Day to remember the fallen, lest we forget. I think what this story...
And that in and of itself, because one of the things they're not going to touch on is the same... well, they kind of did with the picture of military service. You see, one of the reasons I never complain or trip about the Confederate flag is because that's still their family, they great-great-grandpappy's military service. Regardless of which side of the war, it was still Americans taking on Americans. So, if he was so compelled, right, in seeing people not particularly honor that day, when throughout the course of his family's history and probably him himself spent some time in the military, right? And it's like, wait, you just got here, you're not particularly, assimilating, and then you're not gonna, rock with us on a poppy day. You can kind of understand where he's coming from, and you can also understand where he got fired living in 2019, because when you sit there and say things like, you people, yeah, there's always going to be somebody that gets offended, if not for themselves, for somebody else, and it gets blown out of proportion, because, oh my goodness, just because your family died, building whatever country or nation you're from, these people who have no historical claim to such space, oh, by all means, you have to worry about them. It's like, oh, wait there, champ.
Is really about. Some people feel like newcomers aren't respecting the traditions of Canada, and a lot of newcomers feel like they're constantly being ostracized for no reason other than the fact that they're from somewhere else. That's what this is really about.
So here's the deal. When you sit there and say, oh, people aren't respecting the traditions, you're like laughing while you're saying it, my guy, and thusly kind of putting forward that notion that I shouldn't have to respect your country's traditions. Like, what's going on here? But real talk, that's a part of assimilation.
Personally fired him? No. Should companies fire somebody for comments they make? That's up to the company to decide. At the end of the day, a company's there to make money. If an employee says something that they think is going to affect their bottom line or their viewership, they're entitled to fire them. The same way you as a viewer in protest are entitled to the right to deny using their services.
He's 100% correct. It's why I can't take a particular side. I'm not in Canada. I'm not Canadian at all. But it's a lot of the energy that's like, oh, yeah, this old guy, immigrants really shouldn't, hold on, we'll get into it.
My problem isn't with the you people in this comment. My problem is with the at least you can. As if ethnic minorities aren't contributing in a really profound way to this country.
Now, I've heard my stories about what's taking place in Canada, particularly in their hoods, which isn't much different than what takes place in the United States, particularly in our hoods. And yeah, you contribute in our, I mean, there's a contribution, okay, but let's not pretend as if it's just all you can paint any and everybody's contributions in one foul swoop with one broad brush.
I don't think you display the Canadian spirit, the spirit of being part of this country by wearing a poppy. You do it by embodying its values. And I think...
But that's the thing, like, because I'm not sure of either one of their statuses. I don't know if they are born Canadian or if they're children of immigrants, or I don't know. And honestly, it really doesn't matter. But in that country, like, it's just it's sort of like with the standing of the standing for the national anthem, right? Putting your heart over your chest for the Pledge of Allegiance. There's certain things that, it's a part of the assimilation process. And you can't just poo-poo it because you don't like here in America, you can, because we have freedom of speech, and part of freedom of speech is people saying things that you don't. And I'm not particularly with any Canadian law, particularly familiar with any Canadian law or constitution. But the deal is that it is a sign of respect and it is a sign of assimilation to, partake in such traditions. Like, we got Thanksgiving coming up, right? It's just, hey, yeah, let's all get together and eat some. You know what I mean? It's really no different than that. And I don't particularly see why him having a problem with it is, this why he really shouldn't have a problem with it. If this is the land, if this is the country that his family fought and died on and created the way of life that you get to enjoy, then why not partake?
All these overt forms of patriotism, while great, don't determine the fact that you're a good Canadian or not. And I take issue with Don's comment in the sense that it almost makes it sound like immigrants aren't doing enough. And this contributes to the idea of othering. Whereas, like, we come to this country, right? We were born here. We speak the languages fluently. We participate in the workforce. We pay our taxes. Some of us join your military. Some of us feed your children, teach, do all this stuff. And then we're constantly reminded at different turns that, like, oh, you're still other. There's, like...
Hold up, though. That's a double-sided coin, though. Like that, remember, like, oh yeah, because when you go home, and as opposed to when you go to work or when you go to school, when you go home, you are in a bit of you are in a different world, depending on what your circumstances are. But if we're speaking of somebody, who is really close and they're real tight with their family, and when you walk in the house, all you're speaking is Spanish, then boom, you walk out and you go to school. All you're speaking is English. So it is. This is a double-sided, double-edged sword in a lot of ways, because for as much as the othering happens on the side of those who participate in the cultural traditions, there's an othering that happens on the personal side as well.
There's a hierarchy to the levels of Canadian, right? There's a white wonder bread, born and raised Canadian, and then there are the immigrants who do everything right but look a little bit differently, and then...
See, but that's the thing. I take issue with this level of Canadian and the notches that you've decided to put there, because you're circling it around a particular skin color. You're circling it around the arbitrary. Now, me personally, what I know of Canada is they say boot a lot. Aluminium instead of aluminum. One of you guys really get that. And the deal is that it is a different culture. It is a different way of life. And if you're going to, come in, then yeah, I really don't see where, participating in a tradition should be that hard. But oh my goodness, that's where the othering on the other side comes from, because oh no, screw your traditions, I'm not going to take part.
There's a freshborn who don't speak, and you just find this echelon, and they find ways to remind you.
But getting back to, because I just realized that I didn't make that full point. when it comes to the notches that he has up there, then, you know, I mean, patriotism, I think military service should be a notch above someone who's like, oh, no, I'm not going to go into the military. And that's at a national level. I mean, am I sounding like a bit of a nationalist? I don't know. You tell me in the comments. But it literally just makes sense. As somebody who was born in the United States, right? My great-great-great-great-grandparents, here, slaves, whole thing. So it's like, when you speak of this nation, you speak of the history that's in my blood from people who, you know, gave their lives in some cases, fought for the nation, in many other cases to, you know, secure this empire. So why wouldn't there be a bit of a deeper connection to the people whose families have done such, as opposed to those who just enter who just came in, right? Not to be a dick, but that legit or not.
They're like, yeah, you one of us, but you're not. And it's like very subtle in the language they use. Like even in Quebec, when we say Quebecois touche, what does that mean? I mean the roots of Quebec. And so they use that to often refer to Quebecers who are white. And this is politicians, this is news anchors.
Yeah, but I mean, there's tons of, like, is it a slur? I mean, you're just like, oh, this is the term that they use. Is it a slur? Are you making this a slur? And there was something really weird about what he said, but yeah, let's continue.
Use this kind of terminology. So you find even in the language, these subtleties come to you like, okay, there's a separation. And I would just say immigrants are embodying the Canadian values in a lot of different ways.
You feel that, like, did you feel that broad brush that he's painting? It's like, bro, oh my goodness, I don't know. I guess, like, you know, he was micro-transgressed. I guess Ab and Peach were micro-transgressed, and now they're just feeling some kind of way. But guys, like, there's two sides to this. And I mean, as far as, you know, those levels, when I say, you know, those notches are off, then, like, yo, if your family has died and you yourself has served, that's a bit more tying to the country than, oh yeah, we just got here, where's the welfare? Not to be that guy, not to be a dick, because what they go on to do is point out, you know, doctors and people who are doing amazing things. And you know what? That's beautiful. That's great. That's not the issue here. The issue here is that regardless, that for every one of the fantastic stories, there's like 20, 30 illegal stories running around out there and causing havoc. So this is a delicate line. It really is. But, you know, I just felt the need to go in a little bit because I actually like these guys. I like them a lot. But I disagree on this notion that they have that, oh, well, white Canadians. Nah, the Canadians I met Canadians of all different shades. So it's not that. The same way I've met Americans of all different shades. So it's not really that. You can't sit there and say and notch that level yourself and be like, oh, well, yeah, this is the way society sees it. No, I can't help but feel, my guy, that it's the way you see it. And that's okay. That's cool. But don't project, you know? Don't project. So with that being said, we're going to bring this one to an end. All the internet stuff. If you liked it, toss it a like, dislike. Go ahead, do that too. Nobody's scared of you. Sub if you enjoy my fantastic voice and you want to give videos like this every single day. Every single day, and ring the bell too. Definitely turn the little gray bell that pops up. Turn that dark gray, because even then, you're more than likely you may not get your notification. I don't know. But either ways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like, if you're gonna notch it, right? Because me personally, I wouldn't notch it. But if you're gonna notch it, right? The history and the struggle and sacrifice that your family put into a place, you know, basically put you a notch above somebody who just, like, rolled on in. I'm just saying, maybe I'm wrong. And that's what I have a comment section for. Until the next one.